Okay, I just wanted to do some quick WrestleMania 41 thoughts. I'm going to give, just some thoughts on each match. But before I do that, I just want to talk about overall thoughts of the full card. And we all knew that this WrestleMania card, this whole WrestleMania in general, we're only talking about night one as of now, but this whole WrestleMania in general has had a really poor build. The hype has been very low. The storytelling is pretty non-existent. This is, in my opinion, the worst built WrestleMania in my time as a fan, and I've been a fan since before WrestleMania 18 is when I first started getting into it on a very casual level, but I was a hardcore fan by WrestleMania 20. So it's been 21, 22, 23 years, depending on how you look at it, of me being a fan. And in that entire time, I think this is the worst built up WrestleMania we've ever seen. Um, but the hope going into this weekend was while the buildup was poor and the hype was lacking, to say the least, that this show would at least be really good in the bubble, right? So, like years down the road, you go back and watch WrestleMania 41. If you do like a WrestleMania playthrough and you watch like all the different WrestleManias or a bunch of WrestleManias at random, however you decide to do it, that at least in a bubble, this show would be really good, right? That was the hope that the build sucked, but that the show would over deliver. And as of night one, I would say that is not the case. Was this a terrible night? No, it wasn't terrible, but WrestleMania is supposed to be your best show of the year. It's supposed to be the show that is the best you can do. And now that WrestleMania is two nights, you can argue that WrestleMania Saturday is supposed to be your second best night of the year and Sunday is your best night of the year. We'll see how tomorrow goes. The card for tomorrow is a stronger card than the card for tonight, so we'll see. But it wasn't just the matches, just the overall presentation of the night was very poor, in my opinion. There's a lot of talk about Triple H as a booker. And yeah, Triple H as a booker is not great. He's very not great, let's just say that. But I want to talk about Triple H as a director because, from a television directing standpoint, I thought that was a very poor presentation. He wasn't holding on shots long enough. His cuts came at like weird times, like cuts to different camera angles came at weird times. His introduction to the night was really poor. They started the night with like a drone shot of outside the arena, and it was like a still drone shot. They weren't even circling around or anything. Like it was just the very first shot of the night was this aerial outdoor shot of the arena. It wasn't like circling around the fans on the inside or a big wide shot of the entire arena circling around the entire arena of the inside, which is very standard opening for WrestleMania. No, they chose to go with an aerial exterior shot of the arena, which was a very, very cold and poor and soft opening to WrestleMania. And just through the night, I thought he was cutting to replays at very awkward times. It looked like, here's an example. After the main event, Seth and Paul were telling a story in the ring of Seth, sitting like CM Punk and Paul Heyman doing like, the acknowledgement to Roman in both in sarcastic ways to build like their new heel duo. And yet Triple H didn't even hold on that shot. He cut like immediately as they were starting. It wasn't like we saw it for like 5 seconds, not even 5 seconds. We saw it for like 2 seconds. They were just starting it, and Paul Levesque, Triple H, immediately cut into replays. He's just a bad director. like, and just throughout the night, I thought his camera angles were poor. He chose the wrong camera angles at the wrong times. He's a very poor director, and he's a poor booker. He's a poor director. I thought the presentation tonight was very lacking and very subpar for a WrestleMania because it's not just about putting the best card together, right? Like this is supposed to be your best presentation of the year. Everything is supposed to be the best it can be. And look, if this is the best WWE can do in terms of like this is the best card they can put together, this is the best presentation they can do, they're in a lot of trouble. That's all I have to say about that. They're in a lot of trouble if this is the best they can do. Let's talk about the matches. So we started the night with Jey Uso and Gunther, and if that's not going to be the closing match, I guess you put it on first. I mean, it wouldn't really fit anywhere else on the card. Um, it was okay. In my opinion, that's the second year in a row now where Jey Uso delivered a subpar WrestleMania match. Look, the guy is very clearly over with the wrestling audience, but he's not a main event talent. And I just thought it was very, ironic that the guy whose nickname is Main Event was in the opening match. And that's the first thing I said. As soon as Jey Uso started his entrance, and Michael Cole called him main event Jey Uso. I said main event in the opening match. Okay. So yeah, there was that, but the match was okay. It was not my favorite Gunther match at WrestleMania. In fact, you look at Gunther's last three WrestleMania matches, that was definitely his worst. And while this match was better than Jey Uso versus Jimmy Uso from last year, I don't think it was like a lot better. It was just better. I'll give it 3 stars out of 5. I think that's being a little bit generous, but it was what it was. Jey Uso's now the champion. We'll see, but I don't have a lot of high hopes for Jey Uso as champion. If I was running things, he would not be champion for long. You gave him the belt to give him his moment, but I wouldn't have him hold that belt very long. The next match was the New Day versus the War Raiders for the World Tag Team titles, and I'm not going to give this a star rating. I'm going to give it a dud. Um, this was a Raw or SmackDown match on WrestleMania, and I'll say this: the New Day are very over as heels, and they're great. They are great. They're two talented guys. The War Raiders, however, are pretty awful. They're not over. They look old. They look, I understand that their image is, what their image is, and like they have a certain look, but they're just not over. They're just not over with the crowd. The crowd was not really caring at all about what they were doing. And this is another thing. You had two pretty important matches on this card where wrestlers have a moonsault as their signature move or their finisher move. I prefer the term signature move nowadays because people kick out of quote unquote finishing moves all the time. So I prefer to call it signature moves. But you have Tiffany, Stratton, and Jacob Fatu both on this card whose signature move is a moonsault, and one of the War Raiders' signature move is also a moonsault. So you had 3 different wrestlers on a card, on the same card, with a signature move as a moonsault. You might as well have called this Moonsault Night 1. But anyways, the War Raiders are not over. They don't have a connection with the crowd, and everything they were doing was getting silence, and no matter what they did, they just could not get reactions from the crowd. I'm in that sense, I'm glad that the New Day won and they got the tag team titles on the New Day, which maybe the tag team titles mean something now, and maybe the New Day means something now because they've been pretty underutilized so far this year. But overall, I'm going to give the match a dud, and I'm going to say this: the War Raiders, they're probably not even on the WWE roster at this time next year, come WrestleMania 42. If they're still on the roster come WrestleMania 42, I'll be shocked. In my opinion, next round of like, and I don't mean this like in a mean way, but in the next round of roster trimming, they're probably on the chopping block, or at least they should be, because they're just not over, and they really had no business being on WrestleMania. So I'm going to give that match a dud. The next match was just had to pause there for a second. Sorry, I was looking for the pause button on screen. That's why there was a little bit of silence there for a second. I just needed to take a breath for a sec. But the next match was Jade Cargill versus Naomi, and this was basically the let's get Jade Cargill over match. And Jade Cargill is a star in every sense of the word. She is a star, and she has the entire package as long as she can get the wrestling down. That's always been the hard part for Jade, is can she get the wrestling down? And this match was a bit sloppy at times. This match was a little bit slow at times. You could see that there was a little bit of slowness getting certain moves set up. and maybe they were in the wrong position or awkward getting into the right position at times. Naomi was great. Naomi's a veteran. She was great, and she worked really well with Jade. They put a really decent match together. But Jade still has a little bit of work to do in the ring. I think that was evident from this match, but she showed glimpses that she can be great. She did some things in that match that I've never seen in over 20 years of being a fan. And that's a good thing. If you're on a WrestleMania card, it doesn't matter how long someone's been a fan for. You should be able to do things on a night of WrestleMania that fans have never seen before. And Jade Cargill did a couple moves, and especially like setups into those moves that I've never seen before. That jackhammer she did was absolutely fantastic. Jade Cargill is a huge star in the making, and honestly, I could see her as like a WrestleMania 42 main event option, like Jade Cargill versus Bianca. Jade has a little bit of work to do in the ring still, but like in a year's time, if she can, improve even more like she has in this last year, and clearly this time off before WrestleMania really helps her because that was probably the best match she's had in WWE. But I'm gonna give that match 3.5 stars. I thought it was pretty good. Jade still has some work to do, but it was pretty good. Naomi was great in the match, and you know what? They were good enough together. They had enough chemistry together that you could run this match back. Like you could go back to this match for Backlash, or you could continue this feud on SmackDown for a handful of weeks. You can get another match out of this feud for sure. After that, we went into the United States title match, which, other than the triple threat, a main event was probably the best match of the night. Jacob Fatu versus LA Knight. It was probably the best match of the night, other than the main event. And we'll keep it quick and short and say that it was the best match of the night, other than the main event. And I'll also give it 3.5 stars. But if somebody wanted to argue it up to 4 stars, I would not argue. I wouldn't go above 4 stars for this match, though. Look, it was a good match, and it was probably the best match of the night, other than the main event. Um, but, again, if this is the absolute best WWE can do, I think they're in a lot of trouble. Not taking away from those two guys. They had a really good match tonight. And that's another feud that you can probably get another match out of it if you need to. But I don't think you need to. I think, this is an opportunity for Jacob Fatu to go in a different direction with the United States title. And I think it's an opportunity for LA Knight to maybe make the jump over to Raw and get into the Raw main event scene. We'll see. But if they absolutely need to get another match out of it, they can, because it was a good enough match to do so. After that, we had the Luchador match, El Grande Americano versus Rey Fenix. Rey Mysterio was taken out of the match because he wrestled on SmackDown yesterday when he probably shouldn't have, and got real life injured, and thus wasn't able to go in this match, which probably changed the outcome. When I heard that Rey Fenix was the wrestler in this match, I was like, well, you might as well have Chad Gable win and keep this El Grande Americano thing going for a bit. My guess is if it was Rey, they probably were going to have Rey win and expose Chad Gable tonight. But when Rey Mysterio wasn't in the match, I was like, well, you might as well keep this going, right? And have El Grande Americano win, which is what they did. So in that sense, they did a pretty smart adjustment to what was probably the original plans. And this match was pretty good too. I'll even say this was 3.5 stars. And even though I've given, each of the last 3 matches now 3.5 stars, um, I don't think they were equal. If I had to rank them, I would say this match third, Jade Naomi second, and LA Knight, Jacob Fatu is first. I just don't think any of them deserve 4 stars. But this match was okay, and El Grande Americano winning means that they can keep this going for a little bit. And I think before tonight we saw this as kind of a joke, but now that we saw Chad Gable wrestle as El Grande Americano, I think they can keep this going for a little bit. Was this a WrestleMania match? Probably not. This was more of a standard PLE match, but it is what it is, and it was okay. So let's move on. Next match was Tiffany Stratton versus Charlotte Flair for the women's championship, and they made the right decision on who should win this match in terms of Tiffany Stratton is the younger star. She's got a lot more years in the company, and she's a potential future face of the WWE. I actually have a video on my channel called Who's Next, where I talk about like potential like next faces of the company, like who's the next big star of WWE. And Tiffany Stratton is someone I mentioned in that video. So they got the result right, and honestly, like Charlotte, her job was to put Tiffany over. I think we all kind of knew that when this match was announced. Um, but I'll say this. Tiffany Stratton is not ready to be the face of the company. She's not ready to really even be the face of the women's division. She's got some work to do. That's what I took away from this match is she's got some work to do. Just like Jade. I think Jade and Tiffany are like huge stars in the making, and that could, hey, maybe even that could be a future WrestleMania main event match is Tiffany Stratton versus Jade Cargill. But Tiffany has some work to do, and I'll say this about this match. There were a lot of times where I said out loud, "Girls, what are you trying to do?" Because like I had no idea what they were trying to do, and I think they had no idea what they were trying to do. This match was very sloppy at times. It was very slow at times, and there were times when they looked like they were setting up for a move that never took place and wasn't countered, and it just there was a setup with no payoff to a move. And what I took away from that match is one, Tiffany Stratton is not ready to have a fast paced WrestleMania style match yet. And two, Charlotte and Tiffany do not have chemistry whatsoever. The match got a little bit better towards the end. So, like when we were in the closing chapters of the match, it got a little bit better. But overall, Tiffany is not ready for those WrestleMania type matches yet. Maybe by next year she will be, but she wasn't ready tonight, and their chemistry was very low. I can say I'll give this match 3 stars, but I think that would be being generous. This match was too long. They really should have, probably had this match like be shaved by like 5 minutes. They could have shaven 5 minutes or maybe even more off of this match. Whoever was putting this match together should have realized what they had to work with and put out a shorter match, which maybe even would have allowed us to have an eighth match on the card tonight. But the match was too long. The girls did not have great chemistry. I'll say this, like the last bit of the match is like 3 star, maybe even 3.5 star level, but the overall match is more like a 2 to 2.5 stars. I won't give it a dud like I did the War Raider match, but this match was not great. Tiffany has got some work to do. They made the right call by having her win, but she has some work to do. Then we got the main event. I'm still not crazy about this being considered an actual main event, and the match was great. And look, I complained a lot in my WrestleMania 41 sucks video about this being the main event. And if you're curious why I hate this match being the main event, you can go watch that video on my channel. I'm going to leave all my wrestling videos up for a little while. I'm probably going to make them private after after the aftermath of WrestleMania 41, like a week after. But for now, I'm leaving them up. And I still do not like the idea of this match being the main event, but when you watch the show, you kind of understand that it had to be the main event because look at the rest of the card. Um, none of the other matches had superstars at the quality or level that these three guys are at, and none of them are either ready to have a match as good as this match was, or these three guys are masters of in-ring storytelling. CM Punk, Roman Reigns, and Seth Rollins are maybe the three best, in-ring storytellers that the WWE has. And in terms of like, I still hate it being the main event in terms of like what it means, this match being the main event. But on the show itself, I can't argue any of the other matches being the main event over this because none of the other matches would have been able to deliver a main event quality match like this delivered. My complaint about this match is simple. It was very predictable. Everyone knew what was going to happen. Everybody knew Paul Heyman was going to betray Roman and Punk and align himself with Seth. That's what happened. Sometimes predictability isn't a bad thing. Sometimes predictability is important because predictability means you just did what you needed to do to tell the story. And maybe that's the case here. But I'll say this. There was nothing shocking about this match. I wasn't shocked about its quality. I mean, look at who the three guys are. Of course it was going to be quality. And I wasn't shocked at the outcome of the match of Paul Heyman, aligning himself with the one guy he hasn't been aligned with yet. So that was very obvious and very predictable and clearly has been set up the last couple of weeks as that was going to happen. And it did. Um, this was a good match. It wasn't the best WrestleMania main event match I've ever seen in my life, but it was a very good match. It was definitely the best match of the night, probably a 4-star match. I don't know if I would argue it any higher than 4 stars. I don't think it deserves 5. I don't think it even deserves 4.5. But I'll give it 4 stars. It was definitely the best match of the night, and maybe what needed to happen happened. But I'll say this. This was not a great start to WrestleMania 41 in my opinion. WrestleMania 41 Night 2 has a lot to make up for, and I guess a lot to justify all this being a WrestleMania. Um, and I'll say this, I don't think it's going to happen. And here's the two main reasons for that is one, Triple H is a really bad director, which I talked about at the beginning of this video. The presentation tomorrow is probably going to be up to like similar standards of what we saw tonight, and it wasn't up to standards tonight. So the presentation is going to be lacking. Number two, which I haven't mentioned yet, the crowd is going to be lacking. The crowd was dead pretty much all night. They only really came alive, I would say, during the closing parts of Fatu and LA Knight, the closing parts of the Tiffany Charlotte match, and they were pretty decently alive for the main event, but the crowd was pretty dead the entire night. And I can't necessarily blame the crowd because the build up to this WrestleMania sucked and this match card sucked, but look, the majority of the people that are going to be at WrestleMania tomorrow were there tonight, and they weren't alive tonight. And the thing is that they're not going to be more alive on the second night than they are on the first night because they're going to be tired from the first night. So the crowd is most likely going to be even more dead tomorrow, which is not great because the WrestleMania crowd was pretty dead tonight. And because of those two main reasons, well, three main reasons is one, the build up to WrestleMania 41 sucked. Two, Triple H is a really bad director. And three, the crowd was dead tonight. It's not looking great for tomorrow. And even if tomorrow is like 25% better than today, it still will be a very mediocre WrestleMania. Tomorrow has to be like double as good as today for it to really justify this year's WrestleMania, and I just don't see that happening because of those three reasons. But that's a long enough review for WrestleMania Night 1. I'm going to end it here, and we'll talk more after Night 2 tomorrow night.